Welcome to Morgantown Motors, where we are celebrating our 10th anniversary. Not for 1 week or 1 month, but 4 whole months.
Every Saturday starting January 10th, we will be giving away a 32-inch flat screen TV to one of our lucky customers. The weekly drawing happens every Saturday till the end of April.
No monkeying around, just great deals at Morgantown Motors on the Mile Ground in Morgantown. Always open at mileground.com.
You better get this car over to the tire ladies. Get the new tires, alignment, and oil change now. You better get it inspected while it's over there. It might need new brakes. Buck, do you hear me? I'm ready to go to the beach now.
Get your car ready for the beach at one of Rainbow Tire's 2 locations.
Get it in gear, you punk.
At the Landing Dental Spa, our goal is to provide quality dental care at a relaxed spa-like atmosphere. Dental chairs with heat and massage, warm neck wraps, and personal TVs make your appointment as stress-free as possible. Located off the Pierpont exit, now accepting new patients of any age. Call 304-594-2200 today and visit our website at www.thelandingdentalspa.com to schedule an appointment. The Landing Dental Spa, a healthy smile with peace of mind.
So you thought the days of the corner drugstore were gone. Well, you'll want to try the Pierpont Landing Pharmacy. Pierpont Landing Pharmacy is locally owned and operated and specializes in patient counseling and prescription compounding. Pierpont Landing can even handle veterinary products, just like the old corner drugstore used to, plus a variety of over-the-counter products like greeting cards, Sarah's candies, and more. There's even a drive-through window for your convenience. Pierpont Landing Pharmacy. The corner drugstore is back and better than ever.
And on the behalf of the Chamber, let me say welcome to all of you. Thank you for coming out this early morning to join with us. And most of all, thank you to you all for, after a busy 60, 70, 80 days, finding your way back and being willing to come here and share with us today. There's a lot occurring at the Chamber of Commerce. Coming up in mid-May, on May the 12th and 13th, we're hosting the first professional women's conference at Lakeview, the first that we're aware of in this area, and the committee on that has put a lot of work in. At this time, though, I'm going to ask Ashley to sort of bring us up to date on some government affairs news.
Thank you, Dan. I'm Ashley Hardesty-Odell. I do chair the Chamber's Government Affairs Committee, and I want to welcome everyone here this morning, particularly our legislators. We very much appreciate you being here. We very much appreciate the service that you do down in Charleston, and we know that you work very hard for the Morgantown area and North Central West Virginia. We're very, very anxious to hear about what was a busy and different session, and we're also very, very grateful to Scott Roadtruck, who's offered to be our MC moderator this morning. So please watch your calendars in the upcoming months. We are working on events with both Senators Manchin and Capito, and also with Congressman McKinley. We don't have dates for those yet. As you can imagine, their schedules are a little bit hectic, but we are working on getting them here to talk with them in the chamber. So please look forward to more information about that, and I will turn it now back over to Dan, and thank you again for being here.
Without further ado, let me introduce a good friend and somebody I'm glad who I've been able to call a lot here lately, actually, to fill this role. Scott brings to us, I believe, the kind of balance that I like to see with our Chamber of Commerce, somebody who can speak to the various sides of the issues and do so command great respect. Not to mention the vast amount of knowledge that he brings on energy and business and a host of other topics.
You should talk to my wife.
That's,
Not what I heard earlier this morning.
Scott, I'm just going through everything else you told me to say while I stood up here. I think I've got most of it. I am though most of all thankful to call him a good friend. We're part of the Mineral County transplant to Monongalia County. We're slowly taking over. Just everywhere you go, there's someone from Mineral County. But without further ado, will you all welcome Scott Rosa?
Morning. You can see why he was a successful minister, lawyer, chief of staff, and now chamber president. Thank you very much.
My wife.
I know why that was a lot when she was a scheduler. What we thought we would do this morning, I talked to everyone, they thought it would be a good idea, probably maximize our time. If each one of them were to take 2 or 3 minutes and tell you what's most important on their minds they would like to share with you, maybe suppose what is most important on your minds, but then really leave it up to questions and answers so we can really get at the issues that are most important to you. So I thought we would start here, if that's okay with you, Dr. Summers, and we'll just let you begin and we'll go right down.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Amy Summers, Taylor County, freshman member, House of Delegates. I just made a note to myself not to ever sit on the end again. Means you gotta go first.
She's on the end too.
Anyway, it was a pleasure serving in the House this year. We passed 262 bills, most of them in a bipartisan fashion. I felt very pleased with the process. I thought we had a lot of good debate. Right, Barbara?
Well, we had debate.
We had debate. She didn't say it was good, but we had a lot of debate about issues, and I felt like the key thing for us this year was legal reform. And as you know, we passed probably 12 or 13 bills that dealt with the legal issues. And I think those are going to give us a good framework to bring legal fairness to West Virginia. Hopefully we can work on taxes next, because I think that's another issue that we know we need to deal with. I was also pleased with some of the energy policies that we did. Getting rid of cap and trade for me was one of my #1 issues. We also did the Coal Jobs and Safety Act, which I felt brought our mines in line with federal compliance and will ease some of the burdens that the coal mines are facing. And one of the last things that I was pleased with was that we are going to allow the PSC to reimburse the natural gas companies at a faster rate, and they are interested in expanding natural gas to the Eastern Panhandle, who does not have natural gas at this time. And I can't imagine not heating or cooking without natural gas. I don't know how they do that. But anyway, I think we're off to a good start, and I'd be glad to address any questions when we're done.
Thank you. Next will be Senator Williams, who in full disclosure I must say was my Troop 58 pack leader in Kaiser, West Virginia, Middle County. And I was a little shaver, right? Yeah. Do you remember that favorite? I never made Eagle Scout, Senator.
Thank you. I'm like Dan. Mineral County is taking over. That's 3 of us now that grew up in Mineral County, and very pleased to be here. Thank you all for the invitation. I want to also say that I felt in the Senate this year we had a pretty bipartisan operation that went on in the Senate. It was different. We had those of us who are Democrats are now in the minority, and there was a little bit of a learning curve as to how to be good minority members. But I think Senator Prezioso would agree with me that this year the majority party was very inclusive. They, if you were willing to listen to what they had to say, they were willing to listen to what you had to say. So I was not disappointed with how the session went overall. As Delegate Summers mentioned, we spent a lot of time on court reform issues. I think those were generally good. We had an opportunity to negotiate those. My philosophy on that was that I was going to support most of those issues as long as they didn't go too far. And an example of the bipartisanship, there was one issue, the punitive damages cap, that most of us on the Democratic side felt maybe went a little bit too far. We put the cap a little bit too low. That bill was voted on the floor of the Senate and failed. The majority party then came to those of us in the minority and said, listen, we'd like to really do this. What can we do to make this something you can support? So we had a good negotiation process there, came up with what we felt like was a fair cap on punitive damages, and were able to pass that out with a very heavy bipartisan vote. One of the other things I think that we looked at very heavily and were successful in some areas and not successful in others was the expansion of broadband. I was happy to be the lead sponsor on the reestablishment of what in the past has been the Broadband Development Council. It's now going to be called the Broadband Enhancement Council. And we had a lot of help from the State Chamber and others to get that done. But we were able to recreate that, and when the Broadband Development Council sunsetted in December of last year, there was no state organization looking at what we need to do in the rural parts of the state to expand access and uptake to broadband. So I felt like we needed to recreate that group. We changed the makeup of it. It was very heavily, the old Broadband Development Council was very heavily based on the providers of broadband, those companies out there that provide you the service. We changed that to now the Broadband Development, the Enhancement Council will be very heavily made up of people who are users of broadband, along with the typical state agencies that are out there. So I think it gives us a forum now where individuals can talk about what we need to do to move access to high-speed internet services forward in our state. It's an infrastructure issue, just exactly like roads and bridges and telephones, and our education system is moving more and more toward online learning. And if kids don't have access to the online part of the online learning, the learning part can't take place. So I think that's a really important move that we went forward with. We had a failure with Senator Walters and I had a bill that we wanted to actually the state to put in a fiber network of our own and then have the providers have access to it to more quickly move broadband out. That didn't get as much attention as I hoped it would, but we always have another year, and sometimes these things take 2 or 3 years. Amy mentioned the access to capital quicker for gas lines. While that's great for the Eastern Panhandle, and I certainly support that, I'm more interested in seeing, we have a lot of people at home, in homes and businesses right here in north central West Virginia that don't have access to natural gas. The lines may go near, but the supply lines don't come to their homes or to their businesses, and I think this bill will certainly help that as well. Disappointments, we didn't look at the roads 1 minute. And I am extremely disappointed at that. I've sent a letter to Governor Tomlin and asked him to call us into special session to deal with the issue of secondary roads. As I drove down here, I noticed some of the roads in Montague County have a pothole or two in them. Well, yeah, there was a car at the bottom of some of the potholes. But if we don't do something about the roads, everything else we did with regard to economic development is not going to amount to anything. And it's going to take more than a few $100,000. So we all need to be prepared. If the governor will call us back into special session, there's going to have to be some revenue raised. How we do that is up to the members of the legislature and the governor's office. But if we don't do something about the roads over the next year, then we don't need to be talking much about economic development in this state. If we're going to spend $300,000 in the roads, that pays about, what, 20 miles, 50 miles? It doesn't do anything. It's going to take millions of dollars, and we're going to have to face that fact, and we're going to have to step up. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Senator. I think there were 1,607 bills introduced this year. The Senate, 135, and the House, 126. You passed 261. Senator, I think that's more than has ever been passed.
Yeah, when we started.
You're right down there.
Well, thank you, Scott, and members of the chamber for having us here this morning. It was the usual trek from Fairmont to Morgantown, you know, the 15 minutes on the interstate, 20 minutes getting here from the interstate. But good thing I came early. You know, I knew it was going to be a different kind of session this year. I've got a new office. This is my office mate. We shared offices, and we had two great secretaries. It was a real pleasure being with Bob because he has a calming effect on me sometimes. But my secretary, she's a great lady, great lady, and I brought her from finance over. And about the third day she came in, she said, "Senator, I think your phone is broken." I said, "What?" She said, "Nobody's calling." I said, "Wait a minute, oh Jesus." You know, last year it was a 15-minute rotation. Everybody came through at one time. I think my biggest accomplishment was that the chair of the Finance Committee now, Senator Hall, kept all of my staff intact. We built a tremendous staff over the last 4 years, used all of my technology, even, you know, stole my smart board and was using it. I never got to use it, but that's great. But, you know, when all the smoke clears and all the partisan issues are separated, and there were a few, and, you know, we had to make a statement here and then and vote Democrat, and folks had to vote Republican, and that's just the nature of the beast. But when you come down to it, something that never changes is the budget. And that's my passion, the budget. Because I've worked this thing 4 years. I've went, you know, I go through every line item. We discreetly look at the merits of each line item. And when the governor presents his executive budget at the state of the state, that's our mission. You know, we go through and we decipher, we disaggregate the data, we put it together, and he made some serious budget cuts. In balancing his budget, he does it every year, and Senator Hall was very kind. You know, I've worked very closely with him because basically not a whole lot's changed over the last 4 years. We were in budget deficit. We had to do some things that were questionable, but we did it. We made it through. We didn't raise any taxes. Obviously, we should have raised some taxes for roads, as Senator Williams has, you know, so eloquently mentioned, but we haven't done that yet. The governor hasn't released his Blue Ribbon Commission report. It baffles me why he hasn't, but in any event, we have to go forward. So the governor offered a $4,321 million budget. That included about 6 bills that we had to pass. It had budget cuts, primarily university, worked very closely with Rob Alsop in giving WVU some flexibility, and also trying to restore some of those budget cuts, which we did. In the governor's budget, he went $60 million into the rainy day fund. We thought that, you know, 21 million wasn't bad. He cut it down to 16, but from the life of me, I can't figure out why. But he cut it further in line item vetoes, which didn't make a whole lot of difference to the rainy day fund, but it did cause some trouble for some of the folks that are sitting in this room. Like, we have the Women in Excellence here, and we tried to restore that, and we think we got some of the money put back there. The health right clinics and things of that sort. And obviously West Virginia University suffered the largest budget cuts, but we did restore most of those cuts. And, you know, Scott, I could go through every budget line item, I'm sure, and tell you what the governor vetoed and what the cuts were, but that wouldn't be very good for this morning. I came out of the session with probably a different outlook than a lot of folks. You know, this is the first time in 25 years that I haven't been a major committee chair. So it's a little bit different when you have to sit back, and I offered advice, but, you know, 25 cents in my advice wouldn't probably buy you a cup of coffee, but they did ask some questions, and we tried to guide the new leadership along. But, you know, I looked at it like being in a poker game. You know, they're going to deal you a hand. You have no choice of what cards you get. You've got to play the cards, or you got to fold. It's very easy to fold and say, hey, I'm against everything. But if you got a weekend, you got to play it and do the best you can. And I think we did. And I think they extended a courtesy to us, that we worked hand in hand and got some things done that probably would have never been done if things continued the way they were. But all in all, the budget is a major issue. We do have some good news. Our retirement programs did net us some additional money, about $47 million. We had some money on the school taxes that came in that helped us out a little bit. So the governor got some additional monies that he didn't have at the beginning of the session. And it looks like next year things are going to start to grow, and we're going to be able to do some things that we haven't been able to do before. And also, I'd like to point out Elton Callan. I had him down for part of the session, and he worked very closely with the Morgantown Stiff Bill. And there were some problems, as there were in the past, that we had to overcome. But I think we made out on that, and I just want to thank him for coming down and sort of lighting the fire under us and getting that done. But be happy to answer any questions about the budget or things of that sort. Again, thank you, Scott.
Thank you for your long service. I think our rainy day fund still has in excess of $800 million in it. Our bond rating is still very, very good. They were in great shape there. I think the legislature over the last several decades has displayed tremendous discipline in getting us to where we're paying our bills. I remember only a few years back we were one of, 4 states that were in the black in the whole United States. Quite an accomplishment. Now privileged to introduce first-time delegate, a good friend of mine, Joe Statler. Delegate Statler.
Well, I will tell you, I'm like Andy. I come to it with a different perspective of what there, and the question I get asked all the time is, was it what you expected? And the answer is not completely, I will tell you that. I've made several trips to Charleston working with legislators in the past asking for things, and usually they help me out. When I went down there, the first thing I found out is, although the problems that we have, because we went around and we met with the chamber, we met with the school board, we met with the Morgantown City Council and other groups, and they told us what they would like to see happen in Montague County. What I found out quickly down there is just because it's an important issue to us here in Montague County doesn't necessarily mean it's all that important to the rest of the state. And so you have to start chipping away and working on that. Now I will tell you that probably one of my biggest disappointments was that we weren't able to move the local bill forward from the Chamber of Commerce. We worked on that thing. As Mr. Williams said, we may not have spent the time that everybody thought was necessary on transportation, and believe me, that was one of my 2 big topics that I was going down with, was transportation and education. We did work on transportation. Spent a lot of hours up and down the halls trying to put a coalition together to move that thing forward and make it happen, to get it on the floor, get it in committees. It just didn't happen. That doesn't mean that it won't happen, but there's a lot more than what you think. That just the taxing issue, when you raise them, when you don't, that all become into play. So there were several things that came in on that bill, even on to the point that some of the other organizations, Municipal League, the State Tax Department, others, really are not in favor of that bill. So we've got to work through those issues. As Mr. Williams said, it may not happen the first year, we just got to keep chipping away at it. So it's not a done issue, we still got to work on it, we got to get something to happen there. The other thing is on education. I will tell you that I was very fortunate to get to serve under Amanda Pazin as chair on the Education Committee, and she done a great job with working with that. We were able to get several bills that the county wanted to go through, including a principals association. Some didn't make it all the way through. That's part of the process that I learned quickly, is when you're in committee and you get something taken out, you think it's okay, well, it goes from that committee to another committee. The second committee doesn't think it's that important to take that part out, they put it back in. You win it on the floor, you get an amendment, you get it out on the floor, you think, great, goes to the Senate side. You talk to the Senate side, they're going to move it forward the way it is. Lo and behold, on a Saturday night, and a Saturday night sometime, we can just sit down and talk about a Saturday night. That last day of session, I'm just here to tell you right now, it's like a 5-ring auction going on. There's a little something happening everywhere, and things are moving, and you're trying to keep track of all of it, and it gets a little daunting. I will tell you that for an old farm boy that comes out. But I will say that things changes. Long and behold, what we wanted in that bill didn't make it all the way through. We did get to save that money for 1 year, and I'm talking about the in lieu of money for the pilot project for Longview. Through the help of Senator Prezioso there, we were able to save that in conference committee at least for this year, so we have to go back and work on that some more next year. That's not completely a done deal. So those are things that was troubling to me as to how you do that. Again, it's a different process. It's certainly a lot of debate, sometimes too much debate, I think, on an issue that I have to tell you, I keep referring to the milk. I know there's people in this room probably feels you shouldn't drink raw milk. Maybe so. I was raised on it. I don't know. But for 3 hours to debate whether you drink raw milk or not, and then it passes by like 85 to 15. That part I really don't understand. And I know there are people in the room that support it, and I understand why. But at some point in time, sometimes on a lot of that debate, although it's good, there's other important issues out there that you only get 60 days, and sometimes you've got other issues that maybe y'all be moving on. So I don't know. I just don't. The process is a good process, and I think as you get there longer, you understand the process better. I really thought I understood it well. I do know that we have to make alliances down there. We have to have people that simply, when you go up to them and ask them to support something and vote for it, they will work with you and get it done. And I agree with everybody else. We did have a good bipartisan relationship down there. That did not stop this legislation. I would make that it wasn't because of not having partisanship between the two parties. I thought that worked out really well. We were able to work on some bills and do some things that never seemed to be an issue to me. I never thought that in a minute. So with that.
Doug, before we'll welcome Dr. Brian Kachava to join you all. Dr. Fletcher, you no longer have to worry about being on the end. You did it first. Madam Chair.
Thank you. I still have to get used to that.
The Madam Chair?
The Madam Chair part. Yes, I'm still not used to it, although my name is Amanda Patterson. I do, actually, and I have to say, Senator Prezioso talked about that 15-minute rotation. I was not prepared for that. I came in thinking, we're going to get things done. This is great. And, my assistant looks at me and she's already filled up my calendar, and I don't even know who these people are. And so the session started off a little bit overwhelming for me, to say the least. But I have a wonderful staff. It's a lot of the same staff that was there before. They worked hard to get me up to date and help me kind of weather the storm that I was approaching. So Joe mentioned I am honored to serve as the House Education Chair. Delegate Kachava and Delegate Sattler both are members of the committee, so it was nice to have a good, strong representation from Monongalia County on education. And we did work hard. I mean, Joe mentioned how much we worked. We passed major reform in the first few weeks of session related to education. What we tried to do is focus mostly on local control. If we look at public education in West Virginia, we overregulate both K-12 education and higher education. We have an antiquated funding system, and we force a one-size-fits-all approach on all of our schools, all of our students, and throughout all of our communities around the state. So what we tried to do in education is look at ways we could deregulate education, return that control to the local level. I think it's important for our county boards and our superintendents to be able to make decisions that we currently make in Charleston, and look at ways that we could free up funding for our systems and allow our systems to be more flexible in the way that they fund positions or they fund opportunities or projects that they may have at the local level. So one of those that I'd like to talk about is alternative certification. The alternative certification bill, you've probably heard a lot about that. That was one of the things that was talked about. And the second bill that we passed out of committee, I kept everybody there until late at night, on more than one occasion. We got there to the Capitol when it was dark in the mornings and left when it was dark at night. So. But alternative certification was House Bill 2005, and what that did was allow mainly for second career professionals to enter the education arena through the classroom. There was a gentleman that became a poster child for House Bill 2005. He was a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army. He had been an assistant professor at West Point University, where he taught French and African affairs. He had an undergraduate degree from West Point, a master's, and a doctorate from Seton Hall University. He was a JROTC instructor at James Monroe High School and was actually volunteering his time to teach French at James Monroe High School as well. And in this French course, these children were also receiving college credit in conjunction with the local community and technical college. So these kids were kind of getting dual benefit from this gentleman's class that he was teaching at James Monroe High School. The Office of Education Audits came in and told him that he was not qualified to teach French because his undergraduate degree was not in education. So regardless of what his advanced degrees were in, regardless of what his career looked like, his accomplishments, he was not qualified to teach French at James Monroe High School because he did not have an undergraduate degree in education. So and as we went through this process, we began to get a lot of stories like this from a lot of individuals, mainly retired vets, but certainly those that were professionals in the chemical industry, in the engineering field, and those that would be interested in entering education at as a retiree and giving back to their communities through the classroom, that just would not take the additional time and expense to go back to school and get an additional undergraduate degree in education. So what House Bill 2005 now will allow is our communities to look at these alternatively certified individuals, these individuals that may not necessarily have an educational background, but bring a skill and a knowledge to the table that relates to a specific subject matter, and look at transitioning them into becoming teachers, how they can get them into the classroom, giving them the mentorship needed, the classroom development training that might be needed. And every individual will be different, so there is some allowance for flexibility at the local level depending on that individual's qualifications and their experience and their background. So that's one of the things that I'm most proud of that we accomplished in education. I know you heard a lot about public charter schools, and as Joe talked about, that last day of session is the craziest. Senate Bill 14 was our public charter school piece of legislation, and quite frankly, as we moved through the night on Saturday, there were things that were important to get through. We knew the public charter school bill would take up several hours of floor debate, and we didn't want to hinder other things that were on the calendar to be passed that night. So unfortunately, because of just the timing issue, we ran out of time on Senate Bill 14 and public charter schools, but that is an issue that we will study over the summer, and we anticipate it coming back in 2016. I'd be happy to take any questions related to education, and thank you all for being here this morning and being willing to listen to us.
Thank you. Dr. Fleischauer.
Thank you. My name is Barbara Evans Fleischauer, and I, like Roman and Bob, have been in the legislature quite a number of years, and it was a big adjustment for me to switch to the minority. I became the minority chair of the Health and Human Resources Committee, and I also serve on Judiciary, so this was a very busy year for me, but it was last year too. Last year we had the water crisis. So both of those committees were, and as well as finance, we were very, very busy last year as well. I would say that, well, first of all, let me thank a lot of you. There are so many people in this room that I saw who came down to the legislature, and it really made a difference. I think maybe more this year than ever before, and we really needed you on a lot of different issues. For example, Juliana came down on the smoking ban bill, which was very scary to me, that our bans, which have been in place a long time, were threatened, seriously threatened. And that fizzled, thank goodness, after a whole lot of work. Same thing on the immunization issue. For a couple, 5 or 10 years, we have been threatened with people saying that we need to have a religious or philosophical exemption to immunization, and that there are only 2 states in the whole country that don't have that. Well, Disney happened this year, and all of a sudden the momentum flipped, and now we can say that West Virginia has the best immunization law in the whole country. We always have, and now we will continue to have that. It has been streamlined so that children that need a medical exemption can get that more quickly and efficiently. That's a good thing. But that was also another issue that took up a lot of time. I was very happy that Amanda and I were able to work on a human trafficking bill. That passed, and we spent that went pretty smoothly. We now have a human trafficking bill that follows the national model bill. That's a good thing. I'm also really proud of the overdose prevention bills. I mean, everybody in here knows that we have one of maybe the highest overdose rate in the whole country. It's really awful. And we passed 2 bills that we have been working on for several years in Health and Human Resources, and I mean, they've been studied and we've been working on them, and I think the 2 bills, one had to do with an amnesty bill, so that if there's an overdose, that someone will call 911, because there have been instances in this town where that hasn't happened, and someone who had overdosed of alcohol or drugs, you know, that they were afraid to make the call. But this will give some immunity, most immunity for somebody who makes that call, because it is so important to save a life. And the other part is the naloxone bill, which would be distributed much more wisely if there's an opioid overdose, that you can give that and it will reverse that. So those are some really good things that happened. The budget issues were very important for our community, and I think Roman pretty much covered them, but it was good to see all of you here helping us to understand, because a lot of times there are so many different things going on at once. I do want to talk just a little bit about the LGBT issues, because I think everybody is aware of what's going on in Indiana. And it really could affect the business community. We had 3 bills, including the Charles School bills, that got killed because they contained LBGT anti-discrimination provisions. We had a really good bill that would deregulate our taxis and also would welcome the Uber transportation system into our state. That had to have a requirement for anti-discrimination. That you can't call a taxi and say, I'm not going to pick you up because you're gay. Just like nationally, you know, train service, bus service, you have to be available to all comers. That bill got killed because there was resistance to an anti-discrimination provision. I think that we need some help from the business community to say that Mountaineers are always free, and we need to make sure that, and we don't want to discriminate. We didn't get that message clearly enough, and we could use your help on that, because I think it's bad for business to have, and there were 3 bills that got harmed by that. So a lot of good things happened. It was very tumultuous and I would say wild, maybe more so on the House side and the Senate side, but I'm so glad to be home, and I'm looking forward to going to the game tonight.
You're here.
Good morning. I'm Brian Krachava. I'm glad to be here this morning, and thank you all for coming out. I'm sorry I'm late. One of the benefits of coming back to the community is that I get to go back to my normal job, and I had a 7 o'clock client appointment scheduled this morning, so I was off and sheet late first thing. Got here as quickly as I could. As you might or might not know, I'm a freshman delegate, and so this was my first session. And I heard Joe, Amanda, and Barbara speaking. I would reiterate, it was very busy. I mean, from the first day we stepped in to the very end, it just was increasingly more busy. And in the preparation time I had spent talking with other delegates that had served and other people that had worked in the legislature was that, you know, for the first month, it's just kind of committee meetings. There's not a lot going on, and it's just in the last 2 weeks you really get ramped up and things really get moving. Wow, this session, it was from the very beginning, and we were moving bills through. We moved 260 plus bills through this year, and it was just, the volume was absolutely remarkable to me. From my standpoint, it was really heavy, and from other veteran legislators, their opinion was the same. It was just very high volume, and the complexity of the issues that we had addressed were there. And so a couple points that I'll make, and I think that maybe this is a theme, is that there was bipartisan support on 100% of the House bills that moved through the House. And so that meant that every bill that moved forward, there was bipartisan support on, which I think is a credit to both parties. One, The Republican Party, it's the first time they've been in control now in the House for over 80 years, and they ran a lot of the Democrat-sponsored bills. And on the other flip side, the Democrats came over and voted with the Republican on their Republican-sponsored bills, and there was a lot of co-sponsored Republican and Democrat co-sponsored bills. So the gridlock that you see in the news, in the media and stuff like that, what's going on in Capitol Hill in Washington is just not like that in Charleston. It is partisan, don't get me wrong. In some cases, there are some things that just automatically are, but I was really happy to work with many of the folks across the aisle. I worked with Barbara, and she helped me up quite a lot. I ran and sponsored a bill, domestic violence bill, to make strangulation a felony offense, and Barbara co-sponsored that with me along with Joe and Amanda, and we made that, we moved that piece through, and Barbara was very helpful of helping me navigate those pieces on both the House and the Senate side once it moved to the Senate. So some things that I'm very impressed with. I think if there was a theme of the general session, I think that we moved a lot of legal reforms through. I believe somewhere around a dozen different pieces of legal reform to make West Virginia a bit more enticing place to do business, a bit more enticing place to live, and a little bit less fear out there on things that you can be sued for, legal troubles for us in the future. A couple of my own experiences. People have asked me, Brian, what was it like? Was it everything you expected it would be? And I still don't have a good answer for that, because it was everything. It was just huge volume. It was complex issues. It was extremely busy. I knew it was going to be busy. I knew it was going to be a lot of work, but just the amount of pressure that you receive during that 60 days, coming back to Morgantown was really nice, just to kind of get back to a normal life. A couple of successes that I would say that I had. I moved 2 homeschool bills through with Amanda's help. Amanda's the education chair, and we moved 2 through on the House side, and 1 came from the Senate side. We basically brought West Virginia up to about the standards across the rest of the country, making homeschooling a little bit more easy to do and more credible across the state. So when kids are applying to college, they no longer have to get a GED and take the ACT, versus a public school would have to take just the ACT. A public school student would have to do the ACT, but a homeschool would have to do the GED and ACT, so to qualify for a Promise Scholarship. So that was one of the bills we moved through. Another one was allowing a homeschool family to issue a diploma to their kid rather than not having a diploma and having to take a GED to show that you've been schooled. It basically brings us up to what other states have been doing. So I'm a homeschooling dad. My wife homeschools our children, and we see the homeschool community really growing across the state, and they've been waiting for legislation like this for 10, 15 years or so, and we were able to bring it through as one big package in 1 year and really update the stuff, and I'm really grateful that Amanda was so supportive of that. Some of my favorite things were the relationships I was able to develop. I shared an office with Joe, and that was fantastic. I enjoyed every minute of that. And Amanda was absolutely phenomenal. Everything she told me on the front end coming in was correct about what it was going to be like, and she wasn't off of it. And Barbara was also very supportive of me as well, and I'm just very grateful to all of them. As far as disappointments, I don't know if anybody's brought this up yet, but the local bill that the Chamber Transportation Committee moved, it didn't make it through the Senate side is I know that was wanted to be done, and I'm hopeful that some changes could be looked at, or we could look at that in the interim session, because the state or the local area really needs the infrastructure improvements, and so as a disappointment, that would be one of my disappointments. Thank you again for coming out.
Thank you all very, very much. Let's tell them thank you. Great job, because we have about 25 minutes for questions. So, for the first question, whoever's got one ready, we're not going to go to the end or the end, we're going to go to the middle. 3 on each side, and Delegate Statler will be glad to take the first question. If someone might have one on a subject that's near and dear to them. Anybody? Billy!
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for what I thought was a very productive session. I know the Republican leadership, I was proud of them for the way they ran the session, opening up the process much more than it had been in the past. But I was equally proud of our Democratic representatives who I think adjusted very well to your minority role for the first time in many years, and you passed good legislation on a bipartisan basis, and I think you're to be commended for that. Of course, my topic is transportation, being involved with the Chamber's Transportation Committee. We were disappointed that the local bill did not get farther along the process than it did, but we'll be back. But I want to just say, Senator Williams, I agree with you 100%. I think we need a special session to look at roads and infrastructure. It gets buried in the regular session with all the other important issues, and it's an issue that really cries out for attention in our state and nationally. And we've got to do something. We've got to invest in our roads, because we're choking off all the development in our community. I'm disappointed that the Blue Ribbon Commission report isn't out. But if that doesn't come out, we still have to do something. And I think the legislatures, you all have to take the leadership, if no one else is, and move forward with some action. And we're going to have some tax increases. I mean, the money's not there. And so I would urge our local delegates to support an idea for a special session on roads. And I think the other responsibility you have as our local delegation is to be sure that whatever we can do to bring what dollars are available to our region, we need to do it. We need to be proactive and be out there leading this effort. The Chamber and the business community, I think, has shown that we want to help you and support you in some way to address this issue, but you've got to take the lead for it. So I don't really have a question other than
you're a fine lawyer. I thought that was just leading up.
My question is what?
Yeah, delegates.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
Coming in as a newbie as well, that I thought I want to be on roads. I want to tackle roads. We're naming bridges. I'm like, what are we doing in the roads committee? I was so frustrated. But one of the bills that I was a lead sponsor on was to audit the Division of Highways. And this is because, I mean, when I come about a problem, I need information. And I've been waiting on that Blue Ribbon report for years. And because I thought, someone has paid money and done a study to find out all this information, and we still don't have it. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to study something else, trying to get data. Are we being efficient? Are we being productive? Are we using, just like any business would, are we using our resources in the Division of Highways as we should be? So I felt like we need more money, we know that, but I felt like I didn't have the information to make those decisions as a new person, hoping other people had ideas from the past that we could do. And in the budget process, which I'm new to as well, I noticed that we would put things in, but it doesn't matter. You just take a red pen and you veto it, and it's over. So I feel like we don't even have control on the money that we want put there because they just eliminate it. So I feel your frustration, and I drove the roads up here as well and in my community, and they're dreadful. And we don't have the funding for it, so we have to figure, what are we going to do? And I would love to go into a session and figure this out. So, but thank you.
We did have a piece of legislation this year that was introduced. Senator Plymel, who represents the Huntington area, was the lead sponsor. I was a co-sponsor on the bill. And it would have raised between $440 and $550 million. It had a load of tax increases in it. He put a bill together that said, here are some options. Here are the options that we have before us to raise this money. Raise the sales tax a penny. It raised every fee that you pay on your car, your inspection fee, your license fee, your driver's license fee, all of those fees, the privilege tax, all of those things went up. But it generated $440 to $550 million that were specifically dedicated to roads. Now in the bill it was dedicated to new construction and to repairs. But to me it was kind of a smorgasbord, if you would, of the options that are before us. So someone, and he's been involved in transportation for a long time, so he understands what the needs are, and he put the options for us out there. So, you know, I think the reason the Blue Ribbon Commission hasn't been released is because they don't have any good ideas. They don't know what to do. So somebody has to step up, and I think that Senate bill, and I wish I could remember the number, but some of these folks on this panel, they would just spout those numbers off and rattle those numbers off. And somebody comes to my office and says, where are you on Senate Bill 261? I said, what's it do? I have no idea what the numbers mean. So if you're interested in that, you can look on the legislative webpage and look under Senator Plimel's bills and sort through there, and you'll find one that deals with transportation, and you can read it. We'd love to hear from you as to, you know, what are the best solutions. Funding, you know, nobody wants to raise taxes. There's no question about it. No member up here wants to vote to raise taxes. But I don't think there's an option. We can't cut enough out of the budget to have enough funds to repair the roads the way they are. So I'd appreciate if you all look at it, let us know, you know, what parts of it you think are right and what parts of it you think might be wrong.
Bill Rice on roads.
Actually, I would like to respond to
yes, Doug Flesher.
And let me maybe take a slightly different tack. I don't think we need data. I think we know that we have at least $1.3 million in need. I think Mon County looks like a third world country. But I also think that people in this room that are telling us that we need to take the lead, but that's not really fair. Because for years, everybody has been saying no new taxes. People have campaigned on it. And the only way to raise $1.3 million, or billion dollars, is to raise taxes. So you're asking us to do something which would be suicidal for us in our position. We can't help you if we're not there. So you know, it is a real dilemma for us and I think, me personally, I think the way to go is with a road bond. We've had road bonds before. When we borrow money, there has to be a vote of the people. I don't know that we can have a road bond for $1.3 billion. Probably not. I'm not even sure if we could pass a road bond. You know, if you say over the years, more jobs, lower taxes, you know, people believe that those two things are the same, and we could just keep going forward. Well, I don't think we've seen the more jobs, and maybe we do have the lower taxes. We have a lot lower taxes, but that's part of our problem. I mean, we cut out the food tax, and that's $156 million a year that we can't use to put together the budget, and we can't use for roads. So I think that what we need your help. To me, that's the only way to go forward. We're not going to do something just for Mon County. Everybody's jealous of us as it is because we do have the jobs here. I think that's probably the way to go is with a road bond, but we're going to have help in convincing people that it's worth it. And to do a road bond, you have to have money as collateral, and it has to be new money. So we need I think that's the way to go. I don't know if that can be done in an election year. I doubt it. I hate to be the person that brings you bad news, but I do think people are ready. I think people in this county are very ready to say that my car is not going to make it on these roads. But, you know, it can't just be patching. You know, we need major resurfacing, and that is going to take a whole lot of money. So we could use your help. You know, we tried with the strategy that was suggested, and it wasn't well received. You know, it wasn't well received at all in the House. You know, so we're going to keep fighting for it. We all drive on these roads too, and we think they're worse than any place else. Although people in Preston County might fight with us about that. Maybe you would too, Amy, in Taylor County, but they're really bad here. So it's going to be it's a tough problem.
Thank you very much. And Senator Prezioso, you wanted to
Just
respond?
you know, what you have to look at is the debt service. And primarily we get our debt service from the lottery funds, the regular lottery and the excess lottery. You know, we had a couple of projects this year at Beachport and Cacapen that we sort of committed to, the governor committed to, but I knew we couldn't do it. Finally, the governor came to his senses and said, we can't do this. So there's not going to be any new money in lottery to bond, you know, a road bond. So it's going to have to be taxes. It's going to have, you're going to have to come to the table and, you know, decide how you want to do this. I'll tell you one funny story. The only bumper sticker that I didn't buy with my name on it is when I raised 5 cents on the gas tax. So legislators are very reluctant to raise it.
I'll never forget that. He told me that about a month ago. I went across the Senate side about 3 weeks left in the session. I said, I actually wanted to talk to him about the local bill, and he shared that with me, and I just don't ever forget it. I've got some things to share. Some of it's going to be reiterated, some of it's not. I also co-sponsored the bill to audit the DOH. I think the results from that and the results, should we ever get it from the Blue Ribbon Commission, those pieces of data can be very valuable. People may be a little bit critical, say, why would you spend all this money on an audit? Are you really going to save that much money? And I don't think you're going to save a whole lot of money this year, but I think it's for future years. You know, if you look at out on 73, you started doing a job out on 73, patching some craters out there, and 3 hours later they left, and they hadn't come back. I mean, that's something that should be brought up in an audit when you're doing a performance audit. The efficiency issues. Could they be more efficient with their time? Are they, you know, they're patching stuff, you're building little speed bumps. You're making the road actually a little bit worse than it was before, in the sense that you're actually hitting a bump. So that's the kind of things that should be brought up in the audit. And I'm really concerned that if we went and we brought in a bunch of money this year for whatever, you know, for its road repairs or infrastructure improvements, are we throwing good money after bad? I don't know. And so I think this is what we hope to glean from this, is to get some real information and to make some decisions before we start. If we do a road bond, or if we do raise taxes or cut programs or something like that. I think that the reality that became very clear after the first 3 weeks that we were down there, the idea of getting a bunch of legislators that have been in control for a few weeks, meaning the Republican caucus hadn't had control of the House for 80 years or something like that, to get them to sign on to pieces of legislation that's going to increase taxes when they ran in their district on reducing taxes and not raising taxes was something that they were not comfortable with right off the bat. And so that, I think, is just the firm reality. I think as a group we would run that through for you here, but I think it would, it died in the Senate and Finance if we ran that same bill through that was put together by the Transportation Committee through the chamber here. I think it would have a similar fate. So I think that, I think all of us were on board, but I think the reality is you have a lot of folks that, seasoned people in the party down there and other folks that are newcomers that ran on low taxes. To give something that would raise taxes right off the board was something that, from the local standpoint, the local bill was not, real palatable right off. With the city having home rule and other cities across the state getting home rule, and they can implement a 1% tax increase, and it seemed like every week or every 3 days or something like that, every few days in the House, there was somebody bringing up a 1% sales tax or a tobacco tax. Somebody talking on the House floor about doing that. I'm thinking, okay, we got a city of Morgantown could have a municipal tax of 1%, and then the state could throw a 1% tax out there, and then we'd offer another one for a county. We could be at a 9% sales tax like that. I'm like, this is the kind of stuff that we need to bring back to you all and let you know what we're hearing back there before we act too quickly on it. That being said, I think that I've talked with some people at the DOH, and other folks in the House, and I know that this is going to be a priority item going forward, but I think I want to reiterate again, we don't want to spend money, hard-earned taxpayer money, on stuff that if we can do it more efficiently. So I'd encourage us to be patient with this, and you know, with me coming in the first week on the job, I didn't know what the priorities of the caucus were going to be until I got down there, and so for us to run through bills and stuff like that, or major overhaul, to raise $1 million or $1 billion a year in tax revenue is probably not going to hit from a freshman the first year they're in there. So, I would say that this is a priority item coming forward, and I think every option is on the table at this point. So, if you are wanting to be part of crafting that message, this is the time to be part of crafting that message, to give your influence. That way, we move it through, because I'm pretty sure within the next year, by the next session, there's going to be some movement on these issues.
Thank you very much. I think Franklin said we shall either hang together or we'll hang separately. And in this instance, I think it's we either bond together even more than we ever have before on this, or we'll not get to bond at all. So thank you all for the work you have done on, but there is much, much left to do. We do have 8 minutes left for every other subject that's on your mind. Bill Rice, you've had your hand up. You got rotator cuff in. Go ahead.
With all due respect to everybody in this room, Senator Robert C. Byrd is resting peacefully. He is no longer the most senior senator in the United States Congress. The Republican leadership is going to run the interims during this coming year. And being the talk show junkie that I am, they are going to structure them differently than I have in the past, as I'm understanding, a 2-day session or something, and on a regular basis. So I guess Senator Presidioso would speak, because you have so much experience in between sessions. What we're trying to do here today, which Billy has admirably said, the desperation that we want. Can we meet in May? Can we meet in August? Can we meet in September to get the message loud and clear that we are ready in some method to get this thing fixed?
Well, the new leadership will designate the interim committee meetings and the schedule. And from the past, being a major committee chair, we met once a month, 3 meetings a day, so that everybody got paid. That put a tremendous burden on my side to come up with 3 separate speakers for 3 separate days. And to get something relevant was pretty difficult. Sometimes you reach down to the bottom of the barrel and people would say, man, where'd you get this speaker at? I think the new Republican leadership is going to streamline the interims that will be relevant issues. We're only going to meet 2 days on several months, not every month. I think our next one is in June. June, August. Yeah, there'll only be 1 meeting, that's probably government and finance. And then they're going to streamline the meetings and make them more relevant. They're in the process right now of designating those interim studies. We pass a lot of resolutions during the course of the year. Whenever we get in a situation where we can't tell a constituent, no, this won't work, we'll study it. So, you got a resolution here, we're going to study it for a year. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, it was just a sham. I would like to see some relevant issues studied during the course of the interim, get people involved, get the department heads involved, get the special interest groups involved, make it legitimate, and then prepare a piece of legislation for the regular session. I just want to say one more thing. I'm speaking from the Senate side and what I've observed. I'm one that gets up early and stays late. If you want to meet me, people figure it out, man, be there 7:30 in the morning, you have to talk to me, or be there late at night where no one's around, they can sneak in. I'd walk in the parking lot and there'd be no cars there. I'd leave, there'd be no cars. I thought, boy, I need a gun permit, that's for sure. I don't want to raise that issue, but you just did. But I came in this year, not as early as I used to, because I'm not a major committee chair, I'm not a chair of anything. I was there by 8:30. Bob was generally there early in the morning. I look in the parking lot, every Republican slot was filled. Those guys met at 7:30 in the morning for a major staff meeting and leadership meeting, caucused at 10:30, and they had their agenda ready to roll. We got a little bit in place. We didn't do that. We failed to have leadership in the Senate that would bring us together, and we're paying for it here. But I got to applaud the new Republican leadership for the job that they're doing as far as logistics, controlling the issues, and getting the session, on its way. And for the first year being in that position, it's incredible. Let me tell you, it's incredible. I would venture to say my first year, if they offered me a committee chair of Indian Affairs, I would probably go bonkers.
Well, we have 2 minutes left, Dan, and that should be enough time for Frank Fatale to make his way up here, correct?
He is on his way up there. Or he left.
What's his 40 time? I mean, come on. While he is making his way up, any last observations you all like to make, or one final question? Yeah, Jason. Oh, wait, but Ann had her hand up for a long time, too. Ann.
Hi,
Sorry.
I'm Chester, and I wanted to really commend you for trying to get internet broadband around the state. That is one issue, along with roads. Roads are really number one, but internet broadband affects us in so many ways. And I think that with getting it to the farthest regions of the state will increase the potential for our education system to do a better job, for our healthcare system to do a better job, and our citizens to be connected to each other so that we can help ourselves make West Virginia a better place to live. So that is one of the most important issues I think we have in the future. Otherwise, we'll fall off the map. That's it.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I think I did individually, but the sales tax TIF bill to fix the base was very important to our project in Mont County. Each of you guys supported it this time and 2 years ago, so I want to say thank you for that. It made a big deal to the project, and we appreciate your support. A couple things I would like to add. We're one of the few states that are losing population. We have 50% of our people aren't in the workforce. 64% of our college-bound students require remedial education. 48th, 49th, and a whole bunch of stuff. To say we don't have things that we can improve is absolutely an understatement. We can improve a lot. We need you guys to help us improve a lot. Our businesses depend upon it, our investments depend upon it, our families depend upon it, and we need improvement. We've got all kinds of opportunity to improve, and we're at the bottom too long. I just wish you the best, admire you for putting up with all of our opinions, because we all have them. But the facts are what they are, and we can be better than we are.
Thank you. Yes, real quick.
I'll just respond to that. I think, Jason, your points are well taken. I think that the primary focus of this legislative session was to address those issues, and tort reform was a big part of it. I think you'll see tax reform next year. I think you'll see roads over the next 12 months. All of these are pieces of the puzzle that we need to be addressing, and you're going to see it.
Thanks. Well, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank our representatives not only for coming today, but for the hard work that they do. It's not easy, and leadership is tough sometimes. And you've got to make those tough choices, and I know that you work hard to do that every day, whether we agree or not, but we can agree on this, that you're working hard, you do your very best to represent us and to bring this state to a higher level, and we appreciate that very much. I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize any of our local and county officials. If you're a county or local official, please stand. I know the mayor's here, and folks from City Council, Bill, and I'd like to also recognize and introduce to you, if you don't know her, Holly Childs is here. Holly, if you could stand up, please. Holly is the new president of the Morgantown Area Economic Partnership, and also heads up the Economic Development Authority. So she's a great person to get to know. She has a very successful background, and we're very fortunate to have her in this region. So welcome. You know, I'll tell you, Albert Einstein said that we can't fix our problems by using the same kind of thinking that caused the problems in the first place. And, you know, someone mentioned political suicide, but I'll tell you, I think it's political suicide not to make the tough decisions to improve the infrastructure that's needed for us to elevate our economy. And if we've learned nothing from this last election, I think our voters are ready to make whatever changes are required to get the kind of leadership that we need to elevate this state. I really do. And it's going to be incumbent upon us, the voters, to hold our representatives responsible to advance the bills and the interests of our markets. And I personally think that this state can do great things. I think that we can start to invite businesses to come here and invest and build here. But we have to fix our infrastructure. I had the chance to meet with Senator McKinley yesterday, and I told him this very thing, that our economy will crumble with the roads. And if we don't fix our roads, we're going to start to see a huge impact on our economy. Why would a company want to build a $90 million building, a beautiful building like we see on University Avenue or other places, in front of a road with big potholes and big craters and chunks on that road? So when we look at this issue, I personally think that this is as an important of an issue as it was when Senator Byrd and his predecessors brought the interstate infrastructure to Washington, D.C. and said that we can't be the state that we have the potential to be if we don't have an infrastructure and an interstate system in the state of West Virginia. I think we're back to that level of severity. I think that our roads are so important and so impactful to our economy that we're going to greatly depend on it. So whatever you can do, whatever your very being, the leadership that you have, the experience that you have, I'm begging you as a citizen to do everything that you can. And if you need to drag us down there and have us help you to make those things happen, then by God, we're going to do it for you. And I got to tell you that for me as a citizen, now I have the pleasure of chairing this chamber, but for me as a citizen, I have 3 small kids, and I want to see a bright future built for them. And I want them to be able to grow up here, to raise their own families here, and stay here in this state. And I know that you do too. So whatever we can do together to make those things happen, regardless of party, let's step forward and do that. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for your leadership, because your leadership is so important to us. And I want to invite you all to have a bit of an opportunity. We have the room for another hour, so feel free to engage your representatives, bring up subjects that are important to you, because I know everybody couldn't speak today. And please stay engaged in the chamber. These representatives, every one of them here, every one of them, have expressed to us that they want to make sure that the members of the Chamber of Commerce have access to them. And so I appreciate that, and I hope that you'll take them up on that. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it.
Welcome to Morgantown Motors, where we are celebrating our 10th anniversary. Not for 1 week or 1 month, but 4 whole months.
Every Saturday starting January 10th, we will be giving away a 32-inch flat screen TV to one of our lucky customers. The weekly drawing happens every Saturday till the end of April.
No monkeying around, just great deals at Morgantown Motors on the Mile Ground in Morgantown. Always open at mileground.com.
So you thought the days of the corner drugstore were gone. Well, you'll want to try the Pierpont Landing Pharmacy. Pierpont Landing Pharmacy is locally owned and operated and specializes in patient counseling and prescription compounding. Pierpont Landing can even handle veterinary products, just like the old corner drugstore used to, plus a variety of over-the-counter products like greeting cards, Sarah's candies, and more. There's even a drive-through window for your convenience. Pierpont Landing Pharmacy. The corner drugstore is back, and better than ever. Whether you're mud bogging, working the fields, or just cruising, the Tire Lady has just the right tire for you. And if you want your ride to really stand out, ask about tire and wheel combinations. Get the most out of your vehicle with the perfect set of shoes from the Tire Lady at Rainbow Tire in Masontown. The Tire Lady will take care of you.
Rainbow